As we begin this sermon time today, it's going to be a little bit different, but I am going to say I forgot to thank all those who have given poinsettias which decorate our worship center so beautifully for this Christmas season in memory and in honor and to the glory of God. Thanks to all who added to our beautiful worship center. Also, I am going to start a new tradition that's going to be 1 year long in my home. I'm going to be leaving my Christmas decorations up to bring light until Ash Wednesday. I thought it would be nice to see the light and have that beautiful sight inside and outside my house, so I'm not recommending anybody else do that, but at the same time, I just thought this would be nice, and perhaps we want to do that if we don't get tired. And I'm one of those persons who never gets tired of Christmas and the carols and the beauty that surrounds us. Today, they said, is a different time for us in terms of our calendar of the church. It's a day that's called the Feast of St. Nicholas. Now, St. Nicholas is not, I suppose, what we would call in the United States a well-known saint. Actually, however, he is the most well-known saint in the world, with more churches and more people that have him as their saint, special saint in their lives, patron saint of more than any other saint we have. And he is, as I said, the most popular saint there is. I experienced St. Nicholas Day in 1966 when I was in Germany. It was a wonderful experience. In Europe and most all the world except right here, the main day for gift giving is St. Nicholas Day, December the 6th. So we gathered in various ways and exchanged gifts. And on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, everyone received one very simple gift, because on Christmas the major gift is the gift of Jesus, the Christ child, given by God, and they did not want to compete with that wonderful gift. So I still have my gift I received on Christmas, which was a package of 3 handkerchiefs. A simple gift, but one that I've held on to. So the story of Santa Claus actually begins with Nicholas, who was born during the 3rd century, the 200s, in Asia Minor, in what is now part of Turkey. He had wealthy parents who raised him to be a very obedient follower of Jesus Christ. They died while Nicholas was very young of an epidemic, and obeying Jesus' words to sell what you own and give the money to the poor, Nicholas used his whole inheritance and gave it away to assist the needy, the sick, and the suffering. He dedicated then his life to serving God and was made Bishop of Myra while yet in his 20s, a very young man. Bishop Nicholas became known throughout the land for his generosity to those in need, his love of children, and his concern for sailors and for ships. Under the Roman Emperor Diocletian, one of the most horrible persecutors of Christians in the Roman era, he ruthlessly persecuted Christians. Bishop Nicholas suffered for his faith, was exiled and imprisoned. Actually, the prisons were so full of Christians that there was no space in them for other criminals, no space in the prisons for murderers or thieves or anything like that, but rather there was no room because there were so many bishops, priests, and deacons in the jails. After he was released, he attended a very significant council called the Council of Nicaea in the year 325. The Council of Nicaea met in 325 and decided that the divinity of Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ was fully divine and fully human, a very important concept in Christianity. And then Nicholas died on December the 6th in the year 343. And that anniversary of his death became a day of observance and celebration up until now. There are many stories of Nicholas. Some I'm sure are not true or are imaginary, and others are not. One story that I like to share is the story of a man, a father who had 3 daughters, and he and his wife were very poor. And if you had a poor father, you did not have a large dowry or any dowry, and your female or your daughters likely had to go into a life of prostitution or a life that was very, very much in poverty. And so Nicholas found this out, and without any sign or any in secret, he, for the first daughter, threw a gold ball through the window. And that was the dowry for the first daughter. He did the same for the second daughter and for the third daughter. In fact, if you have a decoration of St. Nicholas, which I happen to have, and I was going to bring it, but it was too much hassle to dig it out from where I didn't know where it was, because I don't have all the decorations out at home. But there are oftentimes 3 gold balls hanging down on the robe, the white robe of Nicholas, to represent the dowries that he provided. And also, some of those gold balls landed, of all places, you know where? In stockings and in shoes. So from that tradition, we have the tradition of hanging stockings on the fireplace or wherever it is, and then surprisingly on Christmas Day, they get stuff in them. And in Europe, especially in Holland and Belgium, other places, they have shoes that have gifts put in them, and those are because those gold balls landed something in those shoes. And we actually, I'm not sure how true this is, but and we continue this tradition here at Zion Church, a wonderful tradition. We give out fruit and peanuts and so forth at Christmas, and actually the oranges, it is said, represent these gold balls of St. Nicholas. And so we have other traditions that still are alive regarding St. Nicholas, and he is the patron saint of the sailors and the sea, because one time he was on a ship having made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, returning to Turkey, and a storm came up, and he prayed, and the waters were stilled, and the sailors were extraordinarily impressed and amazed, and he became then the patron saint of sailors. He is venerated as a worker of miracles and the patron saint of children, bankers, pawnbrokers. How you know about a pawnbroker? What do they have hanging in front of their shop? 3 gold balls. That's a sign of a pawnbroker shop yet today. Scholars, orphans, laborers, travelers, merchants, judges, paupers, marriageable maidens, students, children, sailors, victims of judicial mistakes, captives, perfumers, thieves, and murderers, the patron saint of hundreds of more. The line and names could just go on and on. But Nicholas was as widely revered, so widely revered that there are thousands of churches, especially in Europe and in St. Louis also, named St. Nicholas, the large Orthodox church in the central West End, and now on Interstate 270 is St. Nicholas, named for St. Nicholas. There are actually thousands of churches. There are 350-some churches in Belgium, 34 churches in Rome named St. Nicholas, 23 churches in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and hundreds in England. So we cannot forget this fellow by the name of Nicholas. He was widely celebrated, and in fact in Germany and in Poland, boys dressed as bishops during the Christmas season, and they would go from door to door like trick-or-treaters and ask for food because they were dressed in gifts and little tricks and treats, and that was because of St. Nicholas. And in fact, it is supposed that he arrives in Amsterdam coming from Spain, riding on a ship, and actually still in Rotterdam on Christmas, there's the day that the ship arrives with St. Nicholas, and as it was the tradition of years and years ago. It actually became a tradition that led itself into the origins of Santa Claus, this roly-poly, red-suited American symbol. It's primarily an American deal, but it went around the world because it was a wonderful, you know what I mean, economic deal to have Santa Claus instead of just St. Nicholas. And so the first Europeans to arrive in the New World brought St. Nicholas with them, and there is the first cathedral in Greenland and churches in the United States and Canada. But during the time of the 1500s, there was a tough time for Mr. St. Nicholas, and that was the Reformation. The Protestants did not take a kindly view to this saint. In fact, they didn't like saints very well at all. And so they took a dim view, but however, even though they tried to stamp out St. Nicholas, the customs were very much solidified, and St. Nicholas survived the Protestant Reformation, likely because of Martin Luther, who was not such a dour reformer. Calvin, however, the founder of the Presbyterian Church, why, he had little or no use for Christmas at all, and one time on Christmas Day in the 1500s, he was preaching at his church in Geneva, and he looked out, and there were a larger than average number of people in church. And he said, "What are you guys doing here? You beasts? What are you doing, celebrating Christmas, this papist holiday?" And he did not have to take a very kindly look at that. In fact, when the Pilgrims came and some of the other followers of Calvin, early Presbyterians, they forbid the celebration of Christmas in some of the colonies. And so there was this transition, however, after that, that brought Santa Claus into our world. And we have, especially in the 1800s, then the revival, not the revival, but the beginning of St. Nicholas like we know him. And we have a rather local connection to him, if you want to know. There was a political cartoonist by the name of Thomas Nast. Thomas Nast, and I believe it was in the early before the Civil War, Thomas Nast, actually the Nast family, still some of them live in Freeburg. So I know some of the Nasts who are related distantly to Thomas. Well, Thomas Nast drew the first roly-poly red bedecked suit of the fellow we call Santa Claus, and then it became the Civil War, and the Northerners adopted Abraham Lincoln, and other Northern generals adopted Santa Claus and made a big deal about Santa Claus to perk up the Union soldiers, and it said it demoralized the Confederacy. And Nast drew Santas until 1886, and the Santa that we have today is very much like that. So today, even though we have gone through many iterations of St. Nicholas, we have come to the point of Santa Claus, but still St. Nicholas is the very center, I suppose, of the Santa Claus movement. And we have, of course, the poem that was written that solidified it was "'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." And that became the real theme, I suppose, of Christmas. So fortunately, we now have Protestants and Catholics working together, and the dissenters in the Netherlands now keep the tradition alive. St. Nicholas has fairs and festivals, especially in Germany. We have those wonderful, if you've ever been or know about Christkindlmarkts, where they are Christ child markets. They're around the city square, the cathedral, or the city hall of the various towns, villages, and cities all over Germany. And now we keep Christmas even as Puritans and Presbyterians do also. We now hold the very extraordinarily significant person of St. Nicholas. Oftentimes, he is buried in our past by Santa Claus, but the real reason for the season, as we say so tritely sometimes, is Jesus Christ. And St. Nicholas was an early follower of Christ and lived a Christ-like life. So today, you've heard my story that I would love to tell, and you can find it a little bit more details if you want to. I put the website where this all came from in our worship folder by the sermon title. So if you're interested, just search that one out. If not, go home have a very wonderful second Sunday in Advent, preparing for our celebration of Christmas.